So we've got more union news. Unions, where a group of disgruntled or lazy employees just want more stuff. And they want the company to pay for it. So they make a union and force some new demands on the company that's already paying them. Unions. Spoiler alert, not a big fan of unions. But let's see how it affects regular people. And this time, it's the regular people that work at Chipotle. So Chipotle closes the first of its stores to vote for union. Oh my. It's what's being described as Union Busting 101. Chipotle Mexican Grill just permanently closed the first of its stores nationwide where employees voted to pursue unionization. At 7:39 a.m. on Tuesday at Chipotle Northeast, People Experience Partner, I don't know what kind of corporate nonsense that is, but they emailed employees to notify them that Chipotle was pulling the plug on their store on Stephen King Drive in Augusta, Maine. The closure comes just 4 weeks after employees petitioned the National Labor Relations Board to arrange a unionization election. On July 11th, at Delta Township, Michigan, Chipotle's became the second location in the country to make that move. As we reported last week, union organizing across the country has surged to a 6-year high, with Starbucks being a notable target. Now, I've talked about the Starbucks union before. I'll link to that somewhere. But anyway, unions. Here's why I don't like unions. Well, let's go back a little bit. Here's why unions were important a long time ago. When we had a crisis with employees, let's say back in the 20s. I don't know exactly when this happened, but unions were absolutely necessary because workers were being abused. They were getting paid pennies a day. Working conditions were very unsafe. They were being asked to do things that either they weren't qualified for, or they weren't old enough to do, or they weren't properly trained to do, and it was a safety issue. And they were working them long hours, sometimes double overtime, and paying them the same because people were so desperate they had to have these jobs. Those type of environments forced unions to come into play to give workers more power so they could be safe, so they could get paid fairly, and all these things. Now, back then, when unions were initiated, that was a good thing, and it solved a lot of problems. But much like feminism, it has grown and grown and grown into an untenable monster that's now out of control. Before we get into this article, there's a story my dad used to tell me a long time ago. There was a bakery in town, big giant bakery. They used to make just regular white bread, like Wonder Bread, just picture like that, regular old white bread. And they used to make all the bread for the whole northeast region of this country. And they would make just thousands and thousands of loaves of bread a day. And the profit on each loaf of bread was 1/2 of 1 penny. But because this was a long time ago, that made the business very successful. And they were multi-generational employees there. A grandfather, a father, and a son could all work at the same company because that's what this town was known for, making this bread. And what happened was, because it was a very close-knit town and a close family-style business, what happened was when someone got sick, the owner would just take care of it. They didn't have, health insurance like we do now, but if, someone got injured, it was taken care of. And if someone, they had a new birth in the family, that they would just take care of it. You get a couple extra days off. He'd send you a nice gift. Great guy to work for, okay? Salt of the earth kind of person. What happened is some smooth talker came in and started telling all the employees that they could do better if they got unionized, and they could, demand higher wages, and they could demand benefits, and they didn't realize they had a good thing. But the smooth talker kind of got everyone worked up, and he said, you're going to get more money and you're going to get more benefits and blah, blah, blah. So they finally had the vote to unionize. And at this bakery, All of the employees decided they did want to unionize, and the vote passed successfully. Well, they went to work the next day, and there were locks on the door. The bakery had closed. The owner of the bakery did not want to be controlled by a committee. He didn't want to be told what to do. He didn't want to tell people how much he had to pay them. He didn't want all of his choices and opportunities to be taken away from him. So he put a big old lock on the front door, and every single employee became unemployed overnight. Killed the town. Now this guy, the owner of the bakery, had been making bread forever, so he was fine. Packed up his family and left. The town hated him after that. But he was not going to give up his business to a committee. That's what unions do. So let's use that as an example of what's going to happen to this Chipotle. Here's where it gets interesting in this Chipotle story. It's a little bit different, but it kind of rhymes with that old bakery story. So, for lack of workers, the store has been closed to the public since June 17th, but the company kept it open for training and continued paying Augusta employees while not actually serving customers. Now, this was before they voted to unionize, and the manager or owner of this franchise of Chipotle was paying the workers even though there were no customers. You see where I'm going with this? The laid-off workers will receive pay for scheduled shifts this week plus 4 weeks of severance based on the hours worked in the last 2 weeks. In a statement, Chipotle's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Lori Shallow, said the chain had gone to extraordinary lengths to staff the Augusta location, to include assigning 2 recruiting experts to support the store. Despite these efforts, we've been unable to adequately staff this remote restaurant with crew and continue to be plagued with excessive call-outs and lack of availability from existing staff. We've had an even more difficult time finding managers to lead the restaurant. Because of these ongoing staffing challenges, there is no probability of reopening in the foreseeable future. We've made the decision to permanently close the restaurant. So, they are plagued with call-outs, and they can't even find managers who want to work here. Now, there's 2 ways you can look at this. Either this is literally just a horrible place to work, and no one wants to work there. Or it's a tactic from the union people. If you get all these people to call out and protest and not show up, then they're giving them the false sense that the employees really control the show. Workers are planning a Tuesday evening rally to demand the store be reopened. Are these the same workers that called out all the time and wouldn't fill their shifts? Just checking. Chipotle is playing dirty, and we're fighting back. Fighting back against what? Join us at 5 p.m. to protest the closure of our store and tell them that union busting is bad business. Bring your signs and bring your voices and stand up with Chipotle United. So they're going to protest at an empty store now because the store's closed. So a bunch of these knuckleheads are going to bring their signs and stand in front of the empty store? Bold statement. Very bold statement. The week before June 23rd union vote, employees staged a 2-day walkout to protest what they described as unsafe working conditions. There you go. There you go. This is part of the reason why I suspect the restaurant closed. These people staged a 2-day walkout to protest unsafe working conditions. Listen, in 2022, in this country, if you have an unsafe working condition, you call OSHA, they send 47 people down with clipboards, and they fix that shit right away. There are no unsafe working conditions in this country that can't get resolved by making a phone call to some government organization. But that's not what they did, and I'm guessing that that's not what the union rep told them. The union rep probably said, "Oh, you're working in this kitchen? It's so hot. You shouldn't be working in a hot kitchen." Hey, guess what? Kitchens are hot. Anybody who's ever had a job in a restaurant, either working in the kitchen or washing dishes or running food, you know kitchens are hot. It's not an unsafe working condition to be uncomfortable. Specifically, in a letter to management, 10 employees said that alleged understaffing put employees at risk of cutting themselves and each other. They're going to cut each other? What is this, Lord of the Flies? Prep work, such as dicing and slicing vegetables, is done in the kitchen during our busy times out of necessity, creating a hazard for crew members rushing to cover so much extra work around the knives. Oh, Grow up, you whiny babies. Augusta Chipotle employee and Chipotle United member Brandy McNeese told WGME-TV they waited until the morning of the NLRB hearing to close the store and then claimed we couldn't elect to form a union because we're permanently closed. Okay, now all this is just strategies and tactics from the union and I'm going to say it's the owner of the restaurant. It's probably a franchise manager or something. It doesn't matter. We're going to substitute the word owner of this branch just to keep the conversation easy. This is a tactic between these disgruntled employees who want a union and the owner of this particular branch of Chipotle. They're calling out sick, demanding stuff. He's like, you got to work. I'm paying you. If you don't want to work, just don't work and I won't pay you. That's a pretty solid agreement. But they're like, no, it's hot and they're knives and you're making us do work when we're busy. Listen, knuckleheads, you dumb ex-employees. You have to do work when it's busy. That's when the company makes the money, when they're busy. So you work. No one cares if you don't work when they're not busy. That's not when the company is making money. How are you so dumb you don't understand this? They're not teaching kids in school anything anymore. It's just like, oh, pronouns and you get to paint your fingernails and they, them, and they don't learn any principles about anything. And that's what's just so sad about these dum-dums. So this is a union busting 101, and there's nothing that motivates us to fight harder than this underhanded attempt to shut down the labor movement within their stores. They're scared because they know how powerful we are, and if we catch fire like the unionization effort at Starbucks, they won't be able to stop us. Yeah, they will. They'll be able to stop you quite easily. You're fired. Here's your check. Turn in your uniform. Okay, ta-da, problem solved. That's it. That's literally all it is. There are so many people now that need jobs because, one, the Great Resignation, which was a huge failure, and two, inflation is rising every day. You've seen the gas pumps. You've seen the grocery stores. Okay? These people need money. There's a company who's willing to give you money if you do the work. These people don't want to do the work, but they want the money. How can they not put this together? This is a failure of our education system or a failure of parenting. For a company that gave a bonus to its CEO that was 1,700 times more than the median Chipotle workers' pay in 2020, I don't believe for a minute that they couldn't afford to hire a manager and enough staff to keep this store running. Chipotle has the money to attract workers and pay them living wages, but it would prefer to use it as pay exorbitant dividends to their shareholders. God, I can't even read. I'm so furious with these idiots. 1,700 times more pay than the median Chipotle worker. Guess what, dum-dums? You guys are bad at math. You just don't understand. He's worth more than you. He gets a big bonus because he's bringing money to the company. There's something called the Pareto principle, and I'll summarize it a little bit like this. The square root of the employees makes 50% of the income. So if you have 16 employees, 4 of them will produce 50% of the income of the business. Okay? Chipotle, let's take this for example. Okay, you got 16 employees. You got the manager, you got the assistant manager, you got a couple of cooks, you got a server or two, you got a guy who cleans the bathrooms, you got a dishwasher, 16 employees. The dishwasher, although very, very important, is not earning a profit for the company. He's not coming up with the brand new salsa ideas, okay? Important. He's definitely needed, and that's why he has a job, and that's why he's getting paid. But he's not earning the income for the store, okay? The manager who has to juggle vendors and order supplies and keep everything on track and do payrolls and do scheduling, and he works 20 hours more per week than the regular employees. Guess what? He deserves to get paid more. He's working more. He's smarter. He's making decisions, blah, blah, blah. That's how life works. Sorry. The CEO has to manage thousands of stores and make international decisions with how to get produce and what to deal with this emergency, and he's got to deal with HR knuckleheads. He has to make really, really important decisions, so he gets to get paid more. Sorry, that's how life works. I'm sorry if no one ever told you that before. And this thing, living wages. It has the money to attract workers and pay them living wages. This term living wages has been blown way out of proportion. If you're fresh out of high school or still in high school and you're wrapping tortillas at Chipotle, that isn't a living wage. You're not supposed to raise a family and send them to college and go on vacation. why working at Chipotle. This is a starter job. You get a starter job when you have no skills. They pay you a small amount, teach you how to be a better employee. You take those skills to your next job, you earn a lot more money. Why is this concept so hard to get? Living wage on a fast food job? Are you out of your mind? This goes on for a little bit more. This video has gone on long enough. You certainly understand my point on unions. And what happens is this is going to end predictably. Chipotle is probably going to get a few more stores that get unionized. And they're going to shut them down. All those employees are going to be out of a job. You're going to lose your benefits. You're going to lose your paychecks. You're going to have a big gap on your employment history, if that even matters to a 17 to 18-year-old. Okay? You're going to lose. You dumb employees are going to lose this fight. You're not going to win. And even if you do win, what do you get? Nothing. What? You're going to work less and get paid more? How long do you think that'll last when the store is no longer profitable? Either way, the restaurant closes and you're out of a job. It either happens immediately or in the future. It's not a good long-term policy. You're just too dumb to know it. So, you guys keep doing what you're doing. Or the other thing that the left loves to say, well, just it's a private business. They can do what they want. You should just create your own business. Yes, all of you employees that are so good at organizing and getting together and making your, catch fire and you'll never be able to stop us. Start your own restaurant. Do it. Start your own restaurant. Go to the bank, get a loan, draw up a business plan, start your own business. Then unionize that. See how it works. Why don't you leave Chipotle alone? All they're trying to do is pay you to work. If you don't want to do that, leave. That's it.